I did a video last week that was titled Atlas is Changing, and I all think we know that Atlas is changing, but of course I got that video up, and that same night there was a Q&A posted by the developers that actually answered a lot of the questions and points that I made in that Atlas is Changing video. So a lot of what I say in that video may sound like it's being nitpicky and redundant now that this Q&A is out. So I'm really excited to go over this Q&A because there is a lot of good stuff in here. There's one thing that I'm not so thrilled about, and those of you who know me will be able to pick that out right away. But anyway, I just wanted to go over this really quickly because I think that the developers and the community managers and everyone working on Atlas deserves me to go back and go over points that I had made in that Atlas is Changed video. The last thing I want to do is bring a negative light to a game that is trying to change and evolve, but anyway, I'll get more into that later. So whoever's writing this, I'm not sure who, I'm assuming maybe Nami, starts off by saying that there isn't going to be a patch because instead there's going to be this Q&A, which I think is great. Any early access game that can keep a line of communication open with their community, I think is doing a good job. So anyway, she or whoever is writing this mentioned that a lot of things are changing in the development cycle and that they are also trying to improve their processes and feedback loop with the community, which I think is absolutely true. I've seen Nami talking on the official Discord, and she does a great job with handling questions, concerns, and just chatting casually with the community so that we know that there's actually somebody behind those names on Discord. Anyway. She goes on to say, or whoever wrote this, I'm just going to say whoever wrote this because I can't be sure that it is Nami writing this, but anyway. Like in any adventure, some parts of the journey can be rough, but as we overcome them, we continue to move forward and build on our experiences. Whether we are making small steps or revisiting old ideas, it is important to remember that we are still sailing forward. And I think this is kind of a hard thing to adjust to sometimes. I really think the developers are trying to move forward as best they can with what they were given from, the past 2 years of Atlas. I think we are starting to see changes that are moving more towards RPG MMO instead of strictly survival game as far as what we're used to seeing with survival games. So anyway, let's continue on through this. A lot of this is just setting up what we're going to read and what I really want to get to. So here's the first thing that I'm really excited about. I actually did a video where I featured a point on this in it. I'll put a little insert if I can of that video. But anyway, here goes. Atlas in general is lacking a strong theme. Yes, we are a pirate game, but it's currently a mishmash of a bunch of different stuff, and we are looking to address that post the release of the current feature slate. Trade system, new ships, and claim system. Right now, the idea we are liking most is something we're calling Stormpunk, which centers around the idea that there are more resources to capture on the water, like harnessing lightning. We are going to maintain an element of fantasy moving forward, but it may not be so openly Dungeons and Dragons, although we love this game, or high fantasy feeling. As with all things, everything will remain as we introduce new things, and we will fade things that people lose interest in. So as I said, I was really excited to hear about this change. Stormpunk, I think, is interesting. I almost would have rather that they just went for a straight pirate theme and cut all of that altogether, but that's just my personal thoughts on that. I do think that the Hydra, Dragon, and Cyclops are all kind of strange in this world. I think the Kraken fits in okay because it's a sea beast. I think things like the mermaids fit in okay. But then you get into Hydra, Dragon, Greek mythology kind of stuff, and it just seems to not fit very well in with the legends and myths of a pirate game. And this is something I mentioned in one of my videos last year. So this is really exciting for me to see that they are moving forward. As I said, Stormpunk, not sure, but if they can keep it mainly to pirate themes and make us really feel like we're playing in a pirate world, then I'm totally okay with that. So next, the developers go on to list what the goals are at the highest level of Atlas right now. So number 1, get players out on the ocean. There are lots of things we're doing to encourage this, but it basically means that we want players spending more time at sea and less time on land. In order to do that, we really have to blow out all the things you can do at sea so that they're as fun and interesting as what you do on land. So this point kind of raised a few questions for me because I did get to play around with the trade and market system in a single player game, and I know it is the very bare bones of the system, but I actually found myself managing my little farms more than I was out on sea. So I was going from island to island, collecting all my materials or transporting materials back and forth from islands instead of actually doing activities on the sea. Now, that wasn't a single player game, and I wasn't a single player game because the official PvE server is really unstable right now. And if I were on that server, I wouldn't have been able to have my own market, farmhouses, and warehouse because most of the islands are all taken right now. And yeah, so single player just seemed like the easiest way for me to be able to test out the system a little bit. I really want to see what more of the trade system is going to look like. I hear there are going to be NPC trade ships that we are going to be able to attack, which will be great for PvE. Of course, over in PvP, people are going to be killing it and each other trying to get all their trade goods. So I think once that gets out, people might start to understand the concept behind the trade system a little bit more. Now, in my Atlas is Changing video, I did say that I think they went about implementing it the wrong way, and I still take that stance. I really think they should have first done the trade system and all of that before changing the prices of the ships. I think they needed to make sure the trade system worked before making it the end-all be-all as far as making bulk amounts of money. So for me, that point really hasn't changed. Still excited to see what other activities they have planned for us, but yeah, that's it on point number 1. Point number 2, make ship-to-ship combat fun. There is so much to this, but we really want PvP interactions on the water to be richly rewarding. This, I don't have as much experience with PvP as obviously the PvP players, duh, but I have had a few showdowns with some players on my private servers, and honestly, I have a lot of fun with the PvP in Atlas. Granted, this was before the barrels, but I think they've disabled barrels being able to be shot out of cannons at this point, so that's not as big of a problem. For those of you who didn't know, there were explosive barrels that could be shot out of cannons, and it was sinking ships in one hit, like a schooner could take out a galleon, just like boom, or something like that. So I'm glad that they kind of fixed that part of things. But I would totally be up to giving PvP a try if they rework the way that the system is now, because right now it just seems really griefy, griefing is kind of a part of PvP and survival games anyway, but I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's quite as fun as it could be in a pirate PvP game. So anyway, point number 3, and this I think also ties in with PvP. Increase player recuperation. Survival games can be tough, and we want to make sure that players can be devastating to one another, but that the losing side player doesn't have to feel like they are starting over each time. We also want to make small companies and lone wolves more viable. This is great, particularly that last line, because I am a lone wolf, or perhaps someone who prefers a small company. So by making the game more viable for us, it's opening up the player base and letting us continue to enjoy Atlas without being forced into playing with a mega company. I do like playing with other people, but I also like being a part of a really small, tight-knit group if I do so. The only places I really play in huge communities are in actual MMOs, like Black Desert or Elder Scrolls, Guild Wars, stuff like that. But anyway, increasing player recuperation is incredibly important because a lot of the complaints I see about Atlas are, well, I don't really want to do PvP because I'm just going to lose all my stuff, and then it's going to be wasted time, and I'm not even going to have that much fun in the PvP shootouts and killing and looting and all that stuff. Usually only the winning side, if it's one of those complete blowover fights, ends up having fun. And then the poor little loser just kind of gets discouraged. And yeah, I can totally see how they need to increase player recuperation. The developers get more specific with the trade system. So, they say, for instance, one of the main goals of the trade system is to increase play at the smaller group and solo level. This is great because as I was playing around with the trade system on my single player, I was like, how is this really a viable thing for a solo player who may not have access to land, whereas bigger companies are going to be able to keep more land? So, anyway, they say, we recognize that right now the system is not very friendly to these players. There's a lot of balance to be done there and a number of missing elements like the upcoming trade winds feature, but we are working on it. Ultimately, when all pieces are in place, we are planning for a system where large companies will actually be incentivized on a different scale for helping small companies and solos. I'm really curious how they're going to do this. How are they going to incentivize larger companies helping smaller companies? Maybe they could have like protection runs or something where you protect trade ships of the smaller companies, or you let them buy a slot in your warehouse, or, something like that. I'm really excited to see what they come up with as far as incentivizing large companies for helping us out would be. So here's a really important thing to consider. The trade system is still in its alpha stage, and as of build 5.15.17, all trade shipments are virtual and locked to a single grid. We are continuously working on market optimizations as well as bug fixes and server-side improvements to bring the system to full functionality. So we all know that the servers are suffering with the trade system right now, and it's really good to hear that this is being worked on. It's also really important to remember the trade system is in alpha, so right now we're getting a half-baked, not as fun version of what is actually going to be happening. It's not functioning as it's supposed to be, and so I think as hard as it is to realize that, we just have to. I mean, the game is evolving, and honestly, there's nothing we can do about it. The developers want to take it in a different direction, so we kind of just have to sit tight and hang on for the ride. As much as it seems the player base doesn't seem thrilled with these changes, I don't think there's much we can do. This says, what about the players that do not wish to utilize the market system? Aside from the market, are there any other big gold earners in the planning besides maps and whales, sunken treasures? Although the trade system is meant to be one of the core pillars of gameplay, our main goal is that gold comes from the sea. So yes, you'll see some additions and refinements to life on the ocean, which should make getting gold easier for non-marketplace participants. This is great because, to be completely honest with you, I'm playing a pirate game. I don't want to be dealing with markets. I'd rather be feeling like a pirate. I'm not big into roleplay, but you do get pirate vibes from Atlas and the atmosphere that Atlas sets up, and I'd rather be out pillaging and, just not being a market baron. I mean, I'm sure pirates traded and visited ports and traded goods, bought, sold stuff, but I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be taking advantage of the trade system fully, which unfortunately means I'm not going to be very efficient at the game that they're trying to build, but since when have I ever been efficient or played the games the way they're supposed to be played? Anyway, moving on to the claim system. We are looking into rebooting the original claim system that allowed players to take over a section of the island. This is done by placing down a claim structure that takes longer to build and is more robust than a claim flag. It may also have its own defenses. Once fully built, it will have to be destroyed for you to lose your claim and everything that goes along with it. We are not completely reverting back to the old claim system, but we'll be taking the original concept and building off of it. We are currently still testing some ideas. Okay, so the old claim system, basically the pillar spam system where you could claim parts of an island and then people would go around spamming foundations, pillars, whatever, so that other people couldn't also claim on that island. This is a little concerning, but I do think there are ways around it. I was kind of happy with being able to claim a whole island, but on the flip side of that, there really are not enough islands for the amount of separate companies that are playing Atlas right now on the officials. May not be as bad on a private server, but I think the officials are definitely feeling the pain. Here is the part that I am not thrilled about. I think it's really the only thing I have a big complaint about with this whole developer Q&A. And that is the ship system that they are looking to bring in. And I did mention this in my Atlas is Changing video, so let's get into this. Getting a new ship system into the game that can support future expansions does take a bit more time than just putting out a new one on the existing system, and we are excited to be getting closer to it. We teased the first one, the ramming ship, a few weeks ago, and we have a number of other ideas for these unique and specialized ships, but we don't want to spoil the surprise completely. The important note here is that we are moving from releasing ship parts to releasing complete ships that have special roles in the game and thus begin to grow the strategy of managing a fleet. Boo hiss, I don't like this at all. So I mentioned in my last video that one of my favorite parts of Atlas, actually probably my favorite part of Atlas, is being able to fully customize my ship and then sail with it. So when I say fully customize my ship, I mean that I like to be able to place exactly where the cabin is. I like to decide how much deck space I'm using for what separate things. I like making interesting designs. I have a bunch of videos on building ships. This is going to change the way I play the game a bunch. So I think a positive, I'm going to try and be positive here, is that I hope they are not going to take away our ability to still customize schooners, brigs, and galleons. I'm hoping they're going to let us keep being able to just build on those. If they do that, I'm not going to complain as much, but I'm still really unhappy with these prefab ships that they're, thinking of coming out with. why couldn't they have just let us take these different, like, let's say the ramming ship has specific parts that make it a ramming ship, like the wedge on the front. Why couldn't they just give that to us as a part and let us put that on a schooner and turn a schooner into a ramming ship if we want to? Why do we have to make these prefab ships? It's almost as if they're taking away a piratey part of a pirate game, which is shipbuilding. I mean, just think of the Black Pearl. It was Jack's, like, custom type of ship. It's like every pirate has their own unique way of building their ship and maintaining it and customizing it. And, you know, is it going to be grungy? Is it going to be like pristine looking? What color is it going to be? I don't know. I'm sad that it's going away. And of course, it is more of a PvE thing. But in PvP, don't you like rolling up on your enemies with some kick-ass ship that you spent a ton of time building and you're really proud of, instead of, oh, let's just go to the shipyard and pop out another generic ramming ship? Yeah, that's how I feel about that. So let's continue. All of the upcoming ships that can be got with gold will be primitive class and up. Ramshackles will still be available at free ports for now, but when you buy things with gold, they will be good ships. So yeah, that just continues along the line of the whole ships for gold thing. In regards to the existing ship system, can we get tokens as random loot drops from bosses to craft schooners, brigs, galleons, please, so that there is a route for smaller groups to get boats? So I get the question, but I don't think I would actually want that to be a thing. So let's see what the devs answer with. They say this probably won't happen. Right now we're really happy with how hard it is to get bigger ships. Many players have reported having more fun than ever with Sloop Wars. I haven't heard one person say they're having more fun with Sloop Wars. Dropping tokens would benefit large companies more and go against what we're trying to do, which is to fundamentally change how ships are currently perceived. Right now, ship progression is linear. Once you can build a schooner, you never build a sloop again, and so on up the ladder. We are more focused on giving every ship type a viable role on the ocean and introducing strategy and reasons for each ship type to exist. So I get all that, and I just want to make it clear that in my last video I mentioned the 50,000 price on a galleon and how ridiculous it is. That is because the trade system right now does not support being able to get a galleon very well, in my opinion. If they had made it so that the trade system was a more viable way of farming 50,000 gold, then it wouldn't be such a big deal. So as I said, my problem isn't the fact that the cost of the ship is 50,000, it's that the trade system doesn't quite seem ready to be used to farm that amount of money. I think it's a great idea that they're trying to expand the amount of time it takes to get the higher level ships, and honestly it makes sense because in a lot of these games we see that people roll through the content so quickly and then they get bored. I know this is going to be hard to accept for players like me and a lot of other players who are so used to playing the game a certain way, and we're used to being able to have a galleon on day 1 or 2. That's not going to be the way the game is played anymore. So anyway, let's continue on. How far out are we from super wind sea highways that make traveling around the map faster and consolidate content? We're trying to get it by the end of the year. A lot depends on how long it takes to balance the trade system, ship system, and claim system. Well, trade winds for me aren't going to be a huge deal because I don't mind that sailing takes so long to begin with. But for people who just hate the boring sailing across the map, this might help a little bit. Any plans for expanding fishing so it doesn't suck so much, like better random loot tables from fishing, maybe getting maps randomly, higher quality fishing pole equals better maps, blueprints, gold, etc. We can answer this by saying that we don't think there is nearly enough fun stuff to do in the water, and we are looking to blow that out significantly. This will include water creature taming, better fishing, ocean resource gathering, and better diving. This is all awesome. I think the more that they can expand on this, the better, for obvious reasons. I don't need to get into depth about that. Any planned changes for free ports, exponential decay, or something to prevent free port living? Not yet. We have to put in all the systems that allow lone wolves and small groups to survive elsewhere first. Long term, we envision settlements of any kind to be more friendly or hostile to you depending on how you've treated them in the past. That's really interesting. Curious to see what they do, but I don't have much to say about it because there's not a lot of information to go on there. Can you tell us more about the ideas behind how breeding is envisioned by the dev team for beginner breeders through the most advanced breeders? Right now it takes too much time to do unless an entire weekend day is devoted to it. Perhaps more difficulties while raising babies through their infant stages, but have it to be for a much shorter period of time. Okay, I completely agree with this. I really have been wanting to breed a line of horses, but every time I get into it, I just lose too many foals because I really can't sit around. I have horses in real life that I have to run out and take care of multiple times a day, so it's really hard for me to get this going, and I really hope that they can think of a system that everyone is happy with. So, treasure maps need a lot of work. Our big change is planned for the hunts to be more engaging. The distance requirement is also a negative map factor. It's not enjoyable to sail 7 grids out, 7 grids back to run a masterwork map. Could maps that are of any qualities spawn on an island that are closer? Yes, a rework of this is planned, but it's down the road. It's not where we want it either, and for sure we are looking at the treasure spawning closer. So I'm surprised that they didn't mention the fact that you can't really attack the army of the damned with ranged weaponry very well, and that all of the weapons you make in order to attack them are pretty much just, they don't make a difference. Melee weapons are fine, but the stuff that's fun really isn't. So I'm hoping that they can allow us to actually attack them again so that we don't have to use tames to do them. I want to feel like a pirate on foot. I don't want to ride a bear into battle as a pirate, but anyway. I do love the bears in the game, don't get me wrong, I love them. So, I'm going to breeze through the Q&A really quickly because this video is getting quite long and I did not plan on talking for this long, and remember those horses I was talking about? Well, I have to go feed them soon. So, anyway, this talks about optimization, so of course we know the game needs work with optimization and performance. They definitely say that their engineering staff is working on it, so that's all we need to know about that. Is the team still looking at ways for players to keep some progress through the wipes? This is really interesting, and this is an awesome idea because we all know how people feel about wipes, putting in so much effort just to have it wiped. Yes, we haven't figured out a balanced and scalable method yet, but we do want that. Adding a new global server structure with the trade system was the first step on this, and we'll keep working towards it. The challenge here is that the funnest part of a wipe for most people is that they're all on an even footing again. Totally true. I love a fresh start, but allowing players to retain progression may also allow them to maintain oppression, which is true. So I think there could be a few things that they do with this, so that wipes aren't as awful, but it is an early access game and wipes should be expected. Not that being an early access game is an excuse for poor development, which I also said in my last video. But honestly, I think the game is headed in a direction that we're going to see a lot of updates. It's not going to be stagnant like it was before, which was my main problem with it, is that it was an early access game with nothing going on. So now at least it's an early access game with lots of things going on, even if it's bumpy roads right now. So anyway, what else? This is nitpicking, but can handling sales trim opposite? Okay, so that is nitpicking, but they're going to look into it. Teleporting bed to bed and killing yourself to respawn on Lawless Island for discovery points is one of the lamest things I have to do in this game. Will other features be looked at for discovery points? In short, yes, we agree that killing yourself and bed teleporting is lame. So that's awesome. They're going to look into that. I thought it was, here we go with immersion, but I really thought it was immersion breaking to be able to teleport from bed to bed. But they have to be pretty careful with that because, you know, if you die on your ship, you need to be able to get back to your ship. And the way we used to do that was with beds. So curious to see what they do with this. And the last one is about the fog of war. So yeah, I'm not going to get into that. So final notes. Again, we would like to emphasize that Atlas is still in early access, meaning many things can and will likely continue to drastically change even in the middle of development. Anything discussed is only up to date as of the moment it is posted. Features and changes that ultimately make it to the next patch, as well as timing, may be different from what was previously discussed. As always, we appreciate the suggestions and feedback from the community. Please keep them coming. Thank you for your support. So, now you all can see how this Q&A answered a lot of my questions and concerns in my last video. I really wish this Q&A could have come out a day sooner, or I could have put out my video a day later, so that I could have combined the two and made one video out of it or something like that, because I feel like I was pretty unfair to the developers after reading this post. And to be honest, there's a lot of good stuff in here, and I think we're going to start seeing a move in the right direction for Atlas, even though it's going to be completely different. I think maybe just let it happen. I know a lot of the player base is unhappy with a lot of this stuff, but I think we should just be happy that something is being worked on as opposed to having another stagnant game in early access. So anyway, that was my lecture on the developer Q&A. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope it gave you some information to think about, maybe returning to Atlas might be something you would think about in the future. I'm probably going to be coming back to play the next wipe. Nami mentioned at the end of the year there might be another wipe that's going to happen, but I don't think that's official yet, so do not take my word for that. If you want to see everything Nami has said about it, go on Discord and or the official Atlas Discord and search for Nami's name with wipe, and hopefully you'll be able to find the information you need. But as far as I know, there is going to be one at the end of the year. So I might do a quick series on what it's like to be a solo or small group player on PvE officials, and we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping that they can fix all of their server issues so that I can actually stay on there and get this content out to you all. So anyway, as always, the links to my socials are in the description box down below, and I hope you all have been enjoying your games, and Atlas particularly if you've been playing. I will see you all in the next one.